Hello everyone. This is Paul Ragusa, editor with Security Systems News. Welcome to Leadership Talks, our weekly webcast series. I'm very excited to have Darnell Washington. He is the president and CEO of SecureXperts. Hey Darnell, how are you?
Very good. Thank you very much, Paul.
So I thought we'd start, instead of me trying to explain the company, can you give a quick overview of SecureXperts and what you do?
Sure, Paul. SecureXperts is a 16-year-old information security consulting company. Our emphasis is in data protection and also working with product manufacturers to being able to align them with regulated and required guidelines to make sure that the products that they're delivering to their consumers meet the various recommendations and requirements for being cyber secure, so that those customers who are buying their products from manufacturers aren't exposed to risk and vulnerabilities due to poor cyber hygiene or gaps in security practices within the industry.
Yeah, and that's obviously cyber is such a big issue in our industry right now, so you're obviously in a good place there. Now, I know we both just got back from ISC West. I'd love to get your impressions of the show this year. Anything exciting, any insights that you got from the show?
Yes, Paul. The most important thing that I really saw was I saw the changing of and the shifting of where the manufacturers would take charge of being able to create the message of what the product would do, how they would function, and the benefits that they were provided to the customer. What I've seen over this last show is that the customers were very seriously focused on cybersecurity. What they were asking was, how is your cybersecurity hardening guides? Is your system susceptible to various kinds of systems vulnerabilities? And I actually heard customers for the first time starting to talk about, well, what about man-in-the-middle attacks? What about a side channel attack? What about the personal identifiable information that is contained in your information system? How is that being maintained? How long is the data being retained? If it's being retained off-site from a location that's otherwise locally hosted, who are the people that are administrating the systems from the back end? Is encryption being used? These are questions that I found being refreshing that the consumers were actually asking at this point in time. And it was very good that we were finally starting to see the right questions being asked by the consumers to the manufacturers, and that the manufacturers at least were aware of those kind of questions and that they were actually able to respond back to them with a formulative response. So as far as the new technologies and the sessions that we went to, I conducted one session along with PSA Security Networks, which was called the Introduction to Cyber Tier 0. And that introduction was speaking about how organizations could mature from a cybersecurity standpoint, specifically to systems integrators. And it was very well received, and we found out that the audience was refreshingly more educated than we had initially conceptually thought that they were.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. That's refreshing right after all the years of struggling and and fighting, to get people to pay attention, right?
Yes, it's definitely a changing of the guard, but a lot of the regulations and the requirements are now coming down, not only because they were nice to have and good practices, but now they've become pretty much a mandatory part of society due to the high impact and catastrophic events that we don't need to go very far, but look in the newspapers to see all of the data breaches and the use of ransomware, malware, and those phishing attacks. They're starting to become, very prominent in the society, and something definitely needs to be done for those environments. And it's also been determined that physical security devices that are connected to the network have a higher probability and susceptibility of being able to be used by a hacker as a way to exploit customers' internal network architectures.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you mentioned PSA, and I know Bill Bozeman was on that session with you, on the hardening session. So can you talk, I know you're also affiliated with PSA and doing some work with them. Can you talk about that affiliation?
Sure. I'm on the Cybersecurity Advisory Board, and we basically moved from the area where I was one of the early adopters in being able to accomplish PSA's vision to provide a greater level of cybersecurity capabilities for the systems integrators. Bill Bozeman saw the changing of the guard of where cyber was coming into the physical security community just as significant as analog turned to digital in the IP world. So after the convergence came, there are a lot of systems integrators who were facing paradigm shifts in how they perform business, how they bought and sold products, and how they analyzed what the skill sets were for being able to migrate from analog to digital convergence. And now that we've seen the switch move from analog to digital, Bill Bozeman outlined that the next format and the next framework, or the final frontier, is being able to make sure that the devices that connect to other devices all can still maintain levels of cybersecurity. And Bill really was beating that drum home in saying that if the systems integrators did not catch and become more aware, that they would frankly be put out of business because of the requirements of the industry, and that if they did not keep ahead of the competition, then that they would fall behind and that their market share would dry up to a catastrophic proportion.
Yeah, he was smart to see that and to be ahead of the curve on that. So you're right. Now, how about I know working closely with integrators, and I know, like we mentioned, that integrators have been struggling a bit with the whole paradigm shift and the cyber and IT piece. Talk about the work you're doing with integrators to help them get a better hold of all this.
Sure. So it all starts with the process of being able to make sure that they're not a vulnerability to their customers. When systems integrators go out to deploy systems, there's usually a hardware platform that they might build a video management system or an intrusion or an access control. But if it is dealing with something that is server-based or even connected to the network, what we've been able to do is we've been able to provide advisory services and consulting on how to implement these products securely. And there's a lot of buzzwords that talk about cyber hardening guides and best practices. But if we really think about it, each hardening guide is only as good as its last firmware release. And if these products are being integrated with other products, then the whole sum of the total is only as good as the parts. And so when there are dependencies that are being raised upon these cyber hardening guides, then it's really not encompassing everything that everyone needs. So what SecureXperts has done is we've provided a platform that we can do a holistic assessment, which can give a vendor a 360-degree view of the cybersecurity posture of that product, from a risk assessment and a vulnerability assessment. And I wanted to make one point that, people who run a scan against the network is not a vulnerability assessment. It might be exposing the technical risk, but there are a lot of things that are policies and procedures that can open up the network to vulnerabilities as well. And SecureXperts provides a level of depth of knowledge and experience that we've been able to assist the systems integrator to operate more responsible from a management, technical, and an operations posture to being able to be a better value and support to their customers who they are trusted advisors to.
That's good. And then I'm curious to hear, what are some of the top requests you're getting from clients today, and what are some of the ways that you're addressing those?
Well, SecureXperts has a multitude of different clients. We sometimes represent the end user in being able to validate that the systems integrator has deployed the system effectively and securely in their environment, meeting the functional requirements. There's certain clients that SecureXperts have that are the systems integrators who want to check to make sure that the manufacturer's products that they have meet the conformance and the requirements and the performance specifications that they've outlined for more of a functional testing and a user acceptance and criteria testing. And then some of our clients are actually at the manufacturing level, where they want us to provide an independent third-party evaluation to show that their products have been tested from a third-party and holistic approach to make sure that they don't have any risk and vulnerabilities. So what we see our customers asking us for is how can we best provide services so that they can be transparent, how they can connect to other devices, and how they can instill customer confidence that their products are safe and secure. So those are the primary ways that we work with our customers and our clients.
Okay, and are there certain areas that are growing faster than others? I know obviously cybersecurity assessments are big. You mentioned working with manufacturers. Can you get some more into what are some of the areas that you're getting the most attention and some of the things that you're working with some of the manufacturers to help them?
Absolutely. So on the systems integrator side and the end users, what we've seen is that similar to the way that alarm monitoring is done after hours, cyber attackers work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
So Paul, I'm sure you can understand that cybersecurity doesn't end when the client goes home. So one of the areas that we've been working along with PSA is the development of continuous data monitoring, where we actually are tying in so that we're connected to their firewalls, and we have a 24/7 staff who are looking at the cybersecurity monitor to ensure that these network systems aren't being breached, or that if there's evidence of detection of a threat against these networks, that we're able to see it too. So the biggest area that we're seeing is we're seeing an increase in our customers who want us to do remote cybersecurity monitoring for their accounts. And we've seen an increase in that area. And we've also seen an increase in the area of people who want us to assist them in writing the appropriate levels of policies and procedures to make sure that they, from a management approach, are able to respond to a lot of the requests that are coming from the bid specifications and the people who are issuing requests for proposals. They're now asking for cybersecurity language that the systems integrators have not embedded and had a deep level of understanding. And what we're able to do is we're able to support those systems integrators in moving and having a better level of understanding to appropriately respond to those requirements in the request.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point there, because, and I'm sure you could comment on this. Do you see the industry moving toward, more of a liability type of stance when it comes to these things? Because compliance is going to become, part of contracts, and do you see us moving more toward liability and protecting, integrators and end users protecting themselves from attacks?
Yes, because guess what? Nowadays, it's not about the risk because there's risk all around us in everything that
Yeah.
we do. But when we start focusing on the liability and the transference of liability, does it occur at the user level, the manufacturer level, the systems integrator level, or even beyond there? The
Right.
process of liability that we see is that this does provide the ability to transfer the risk from an area where cybersecurity insurance is very nebulous in the industry. And so, from a liability approach, having third party validation and verification decreases risk, making sure that you're doing everything that you possibly can do to ensure that your system isn't vulnerable from the brand and reputational liability as well. It provides extra eyes on the target. And one of the things that we've identified, Paul, that I think is most important when you're dealing with the liability is that I believe that there's a change so it's no longer a race to the bottom based on price, because all of the things that are inexpensive and cheap can sometimes come with the highest level of risk.
Right.
And now what we have seen is we've seen the market acceptance and initial visibility that customers are willing to pay for cybersecurity when it is directly associated with the liability that they can have versus using a competitive solution, which actually means that the customers are willing to pay for security now, which was something that, in my opinion, they weren't quite ready to do a couple of years ago before cybersecurity became such a big issue.
Right. And then I'm curious, are the insurance companies figuring this out yet, or are they still kind of grasping at straws right now to figure out how to, insure these, cybersecurity insurance?
I still think that they're grasping at straws. Now, one of the things that I knew for a while was that they didn't have the empirical data. They have statistics and actuarial kind of capability on many things that they insure. But I think that cybersecurity is one of those that happens so fast in a dynamic world where if someone forgets to apply a patch on a single system or deploys a camera with a default password, that can compromise the network just immediately.
Yeah.
And I think that the ability for cybersecurity to be a proven definitive science that it occurs every such and such a year or at this time of the month or any kind of a standard that you might be able to base as far as a predictable loss expectancy, because they don't have it, I think that the insurance companies are grasping in the dark. But I really, in my professional opinion, believe that the liability policies have got such stringent disclaimers that the actual value of the policy is somewhat diminished from what I believe that they're actually getting the value from. It's still good to have, but I do think that the insurance companies are still a little grabbing at straws, trying to figure it out.
Yeah, those are interesting points. Thank you. And I think we have time for one more question. So just what's your opinion on the industry moving forward, with the landscape moving forward?
Well, Paul, this is a very good time for SecureXperts because what I see is trusted people, trusted processes, and trusted devices. And the way to bind all those together is called a root of trust, just like the tree trunk that has leaves and branches. They all rely upon the tree trunk and the roots to being able to sustain the tree regardless of how high that it grows. And what I see is I'm seeing where people are looking at security as the roots of these solutions. And what happens is that as people move toward more what I call authoritative models or areas that have proven that they do have these roots of trust, it shows that you're having a building block which is built upon something that's not built on sand to protect the environment. And what I see in the future is I see the models where all technologies will be based on trusted platform modules, which are cryptographic devices that are installed in hardware. I see them talking to trusted people who are connecting themselves to networks using secure multi-factor or biometric technologies. And then finally, I see that the manufacturers are embedding these trusted platform modules into their devices so that they can store secrets and store digital certificates and other stronger ways of being able to allow users to consume content from these networks successfully without the exposure and the risk of data breach.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Thank you, and that's all the time we have. So, Darnell, thank you for spending 20 minutes with us. I appreciate it. It's all great insight into cybersecurity and great services that you provide. So, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Take care.
All right, have a good day. Bye, Darnell.
Okay, bye-bye.